It's here. It's arrived. The first two episodes of Rings of Power. My review coming up next. Remember to like, share, and definitely subscribe. Let's do it. Okay, so let's get into it. Here we have more Lord of the Rings. Now, full disclosure, I am a huge Tolkien fan. Now, I'm not going to say I have memorized the Silmarillion or anything like that, but I am a huge Tolkien fan. And here we have more Lord of the Rings, more story within that world. Now, as most people, I love the first three movies, Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. I really love those movies. I know they changed some stuff, and I know you have some diehards who don't like parts of it, but for the most part, I loved every bit of it. And there were a couple parts here and there that weren't great, but that's mostly in some of the extended versions. But even then, loved every minute of it. I thought Jackson did a great job. And then when they went into The Hobbit, there was some cool stuff there too. But again, like most people, I didn't think it was as good as the first three movies. I thought there were some things that they definitely added that they didn't need to. And there was some different stuff. So the trend has been that way, right? Also, full disclosure, I am a huge Robert Jordan fan. I love The Wheel of Time, and Amazon Prime did not do a great job in the first season of Wheel of Time. I don't think it's been renewed for a second season, although now that I'm thinking about it, I think it has been renewed for a second season because they changed Matt. It's a mess, and it was kind of a disaster in my opinion as someone who loved that story. So I was not really looking forward to the Rings of Power. A part of me was. A friend of mine asked me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you looking forward to? How excited are you for the Rings of Power coming out this week? And I said about a 3, and he laughed because he was like, really, that high? Because I haven't been like putting everything down, but I am extremely skeptical. I was extremely skeptical of what they were going to do with this property. I know they had a lot of freedom. That's not always a good thing, and because don't just tell your own story. Like, be faithful to the material, at least, even if you write another story within that world. And even if it's your own story, Tolkien is his thing, right? I mean, I'm not going to say it's sacred, but at the same time, he has his own sort of style and that sort of feeling and the epic nature of it. So I was skeptical. Well, I'm going to get into it more as we go, but I was extremely impressed with the first two episodes. I'm not going to say it was as good as the original. I'm not even going to compare it yet to The Hobbit, but I was extremely impressed. So let's get into the basic storyline. Now, I'm going to try to keep away from a lot of spoilers, but this is for the first two episodes. So if you don't want to know anything, I mean, there's a lot that you can know just going through some of the scenes and trailers that they've shown and some of the other material. But we've got some of the main characters coming back, but we're now hundreds and thousands of years before the Lord of the Rings. We're in a different age, right, of Middle Earth. And we're dealing with the different elves, and we're getting into some of the hobbits and humans and dwarves. We're getting into that, but it kind of starts with the elves. It looks like Galadriel is kind of the main character. And again, if you've seen anything on the show, that's a no-brainer. That's not a surprise. Elrond is also in it, and he's also very young. And we're introduced also to Nori, who is a hobbit, although they call them Harfoots. And then we're also introduced to a couple new characters. Nori was a new character. And there's Arondir the elf. He's like a soldier. And then we have a young woman who's kind of like a single mom. Her name is Bronwyn, and she has a son. And there's a couple others too. Elrond goes to kind of help another elf lord build something. I'm not going to say what it is, but he goes to help him build something. And that guy is Lord Celebrimbor. You just kind of say his name really quickly, but that's his name. And then we eventually get into, in episode 2, we get into the dwarves, and we get into Prince and King Durin. So these are some of these are names that you probably recognize going back from some of the other material. And so Galadriel is trying to get rid of Sauron. The elves beat Morgoth, kind of the devil character. And now they're going after Sauron. Supposedly they beat him, but she's not convinced. She thinks he's hanging out somewhere and just biding his time. So she really wants to kill this guy, Sauron, who we know from The Lord of the Rings and later. And then she kind of goes after him, but she's really kind of obsessed about it. So Galadriel's this really cool, strong, obsessive character. I thought they did her really well. Elrond is really interesting. I wouldn't have done what they did with Elrond. They made him more of a scholar and a herald. That's what they call him, a herald. So he, writes speeches and stuff. And so we're getting to know him a little bit more in the story. Nori is a great character. She's a young Hobbit, Harfoot character, and she's, of course, like most Hobbit characters, right? She's not cool with just kind of living their life and being hidden away from the world and all of that. She wants adventure and excitement, and it's a little bit of a trope for Lord of the Rings, but again, it's cool. Arondir is an elf character, and he's got this romantic interest with a female woman. Human, and so there's some conflict there, but then there's epic things going on. So these are great characters, and then of course we've got Prince Durin, and we meet his wife. And so I know there's some spoilers in there. I'm trying not to give the bigger story, but what I like about it is they're kind of focusing on some of these characters, and there are a good bit of characters to start out with. But I don't really mind that, to be honest, because this is Lord of the Rings. This is Tolkien. This is going to be an epic story. And so they're taking some time to set some things up. And yet it's not boring. It's not just laying everything out there, just giving us information, although that does happen a couple times. And they didn't really need to, I don't think. But in the sense of the story, there's this epic sort of thing brooding behind, and there's epic things going on and hints of things while we kind of get to know some of these individual characters. And I really like that setup. I really thought they did a great job with these first 2 episodes. Well, number one, it looks beautiful. I mean, you can really tell that they put a lot of money into the costuming and the scenery and the effects and things like that. Definitely thought they did a good job. All right. What are some of the themes? The themes are kind of, so far, are mostly about darkness and light. So this is very consistent with the Tolkien Lord of the Rings sort of idea, the epic. What's darkness? What's light? There's good, there's evil, and yet there's these kind of flawed characters in the midst of it that are struggling with what their place in it is. All of it very consistent and very much aligned with the whole Tolkien thing. One of my favorite lines, and this kind of sums up the sort of theme so far and the messaging so far. The theme so far is from Galadriel. She says, "Evil doesn't sleep. It waits," because they're trying to convince her that Sauron he's dead, he's gone, and she's trying to convince them, no, I think he's still out there, and evil isn't sleeping, it's waiting. And so you kind of get that. That's kind of the theme so far, that as these individual characters are dealing with their own individual things, there's an evil that's about to kind of be exposed, right? Is that evil is going to get exposed at some point, and it's coming. And so that gives some urgency to the story, that gives some mystery to the story. The messaging isn't as clear, although it's clear in the sense of we should fight evil, right? And that's kind of a basic thing, but that there is good, there is evil. We should fight it, and it's worth sort of sacrificing for. And some of the stakes create some messages, right? You know, the young woman, Bronwyn, her son, she fights for her son. She's not really a fighter, but she fights for him. And you know, the elf, Arondir, when something sort of happens, it kind of makes him step out and go kind of beyond what he's supposed to do. But it's because there's something going on, and he's trying to protect people and figure out what he's supposed to do. There is also the stranger. Now, we don't know who the stranger is yet, but at the end of episode 1, the stranger falls from the sky, and we get a little bit about this stranger and Nori, and it's just really interesting. They've got some really interesting subplots going on, and I thought they did a great job. So, is it good? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to give it an A so far. I thought that they did a great job. I thought they did a great job giving us characters with some fatal flaws, with some weaknesses and some strengths, putting them in situations to say, hey, but there's this bigger story going on. It's very Tolkien-ish sort of stuff. I think the concern with a lot of people is that they were going to get away from Tolkien's style and his heart. I think they nailed it so far. I have really enjoyed it. Now, is it as good as Lord of the Rings? Not yet, but I really like it. I think it's really good, and it's great fantasy writing. So that is my take on the first 2 episodes of Rings of Power. Let me know what you thought of the first 2 episodes. Put it in the comments. Let me know what you're looking forward to, what you think's going on, maybe who you think the stranger is. Kind of be careful with some spoilers. So, but just kind of tell me what you liked about it, and subscribe, right? Keep supporting this channel. It's going to keep getting better. I'm going to do my best. All right. So peace out. Talk to you guys later.